Hey, I'm Butterfly.
Hey, I'm Firefly.
Have you ever wondered if we aren't being told the truth about everything?
What have we been lied to about? Join us as we have conversations and ask questions about everything. We invite you to keep an open mind and consider the unfathomable.
Let's break the chains that enslave our minds. Come on, let's go down the rabbit hole. Hey, Firefly, what's up?
What's up, Butterfly?
Ooh, well, today we're going to talk about something that I've been wanting to, a rabbit hole.
It's
That
kind of a spooky one.
It's a spooky rabbit hole. Maybe we should have saved this for Halloween.
This is kind of
I
Halloweeny.
know. Well, you know what? We could replay it
We
like
can
on
do it in
Halloween.
Halloween, yeah.
Yeah, or
But it
maybe
is Halloweeny.
we'll have a like a second part to it.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
it's kind of a spooky rabbit hole,
It's spooky. It's kind of ghosty.
kind of ghosty. Um, I have been thinking about cemeteries
Yeah,
and the quantity of cemeteries.
yeah.
I don't know. It just doesn't quite add up to like
Yeah.
how many dead people there have been like over all the years. You know what I mean? Like
I
it's like the
totally,
math just doesn't math.
you know,
The math
I
doesn't math.
feel that. I feel that. I feel that so much. Like, okay, so for instance, I went to Arlington Cemetery in
Hmm.
Washington, D.C.,
Oh, okay.
and it's got all like the military people.
Right.
Okay, so the people who died in Vietnam, World War II, Korea War, whatever, it's huge. And that's just soldiers who died in those wars.
Right.
And that whole cemetery is gnarly huge.
Right.
Fields and fields and fields of graves. What the hell?
I know.
There's a lot of humans.
There's a lot of humans. There's been a lot of humans over the last like several hundred years
Yeah,
that we know about.
yeah,
So even like hundreds of years before that, there were probably more humans.
yeah.
And it seems like there should be more graveyards. Like,
There has to be.
have you ever been to a an old city where they have like kind of the spooky looking graveyard like in the middle of the city? Like if you go to like Charleston or
There's
like
the Hank Johnson,
Savannah or
1891.
yeah, I think I haven't seen like Washington DC, maybe there's one near there, I don't know. But I've been to like some of those old cities
Yeah.
and they have a lot of like little graveyards like in the middle of the city like next they're always like in the backyard of a church, you know. And because like they used to bury the people like behind the churches and
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
churches are like in the heart of the cities.
yeah,
Um and if you just like take those kind of graveyards as a small like sampling or an example,
yeah.
there could be like maybe, I don't know, 100 tombstones. But so like the years I saw like in one graveyard I went to, they were dating back to like the 1700s and you know, but what about like where are the rest of the bodies? Like what about the 1800s, the 1900s? And like shouldn't it seems like by now there should be a graveyard like on every corner
I mean, pretty much.
because people don't stop dying.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Especially since Operation Warp Speed.
Yeah, there were a lot then. And I know now it's become like more popular to be cremated, I guess. But
Still,
not everybody's
it
getting
doesn't
cremated.
account for everything.
No,
There's something fishy going on.
some fishy.
Have you ever seen the original Poltergeist?
Yeah,
Remember all the dead bodies in the pool?
I don't remember that
At
part.
the end, when she goes in the pool and there's a bunch of dead bodies, and it turns out the reason they have poltergeist activity at their house is because they're buried on a graveyard.
Oh, right.
Their
Right.
house is built on a graveyard.
Yeah.
My sister lives in San Francisco, and there's a pool, a public pool right by her house.
Uh-huh.
And last time I went to visit her, we drove by it, and I was like, "Do you ever go swimming here?" And she's like, "Oh, I'll never ever go in there." And she's like, "I'm like, why?" And she's like, "That is built on top of a graveyard."
Ew.
And she's like, "I trip out from the movie Poltergeist."
That's kind of weird to put a pool on top of a graveyard,
Yeah.
right?
And then there's a park um, in the town that I live in that's a park now that was a graveyard, and they moved all of the headstones.
Yeah, I know.
They moved all the headstones and just made it a park,
Park,
but they also moved the bodies.
supposedly.
Yeah.
There's still a couple of headstones left.
And
And
makes you wonder what they do with the bodies.
yeah, where did they move them to?
And then why aren't there more?
Yeah.
There is a cemetery in town, but it's not that big.
Uh-uh.
And it's the cemetery in town has been kind of the same size since 1984.
Uh-huh.
Why is that?
Seems like people are dying all the time. Shouldn't that cemetery have had to grow like,
Exponentially?
yeah, like at least 10 times the size, I would think,
You think
you
because,
know?
dude, the population of this area has exploded since
Yeah.
1984,
Yeah.
and people are croaking like left and right. I mean, it is gnarly. Like people die like left and right these days.
Yeah.
So I think the death rate's even higher now.
I know.
So what the hell is
So
going on?
where are all the dead bodies going?
Well, so I'm that person, and then I start having conspiracy
I
theories.
know.
So one of the things that I think about is the Matrix. The
Hmm.
Matrix is the blueprint.
Right.
The Matrix is a documentary. And
Hmm.
what happens in The Matrix is when Neo takes the red pill, he comes to realize that he's been in this pod with all of these hoses plugged into him intravenously. And that's been his whole life since he was a baby. He has just grown in this pod and just given intravenous liquids.
Yuck.
And what it turns out is the intravenous liquids are dead people that have been liquefied.
Gnarly.
Yeah,
Soylent Green.
is Soylent Green, and that's a documentary too. And so in Washington, about 2 years ago, I read an article, and I think I shared it with you when it
Hmm.
came out, and it kind of got you scratching your head.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh yeah, no, no, no. We liquefy our dead, and then we put it in the water, and then we squirt it on the crops.
We water our
We
crops
water our
with
crops."
dead bodies.
It's like kind of like in
Like that's the
Idiocracy.
fertilizer.
It's like Idiocracy. We squirt Brondo on the crops. No, but we squirt dead people on the crops. It's good for them.
Yeah.
So if you're getting divulged that, because you know how the cult, this is I'm a bad person. The cult has this ethos where they have to divulge what they're
They
doing to you.
have to tell us what they're doing. They
So they
have to,
might tell you just a little bit,
yeah.
but it's actually a larger operation.
They tell us what the plan is, but they don't go all the way up to the 15 on their dial. When they
Yeah.
tell us, they probably go to like about 9 maybe or
It's like
8.
when they just kind of suggest we've got underground cities.
Yeah.
They don't show you all of
Yeah.
them, but they just kind of hint at the fact that, yeah, we have 'em.
Yeah.
Eh, we don't necessarily tell you we're liquefying the dead and squirting it on the cops, but we tell you they do that in Washington. You
Only
know,
in Washington.
you know what's weird? Washington has all kinds of weird ass backwards immoral
I
things.
know.
Like they had a huge ranch where they were doing bestiality
What?
and it got busted.
Ew.
It was like a huge like bestiality, like porn.
With animals.
Yeah,
So gross.
gnarly. So I think Washington just like rains a
Poor,
lot, so
poor
people just get
animals.
insane or something.
Yeah.
But that's
Well,
where
it's full of liberal hippies.
totally
We might have to do our next episode on that.
we gotta unpack liberal hippies because liberal hippies are just like peace, love, bro. But no, they're like tyranny and death.
Yeah.
So,
Peace,
anyways,
love, and tyranny and
yeah,
death.
peace, love, tyranny, and death. Do what I say. Um, like Neil Young is like, keep on rocking in the free world, but don't say anything I don't like on Spotify. Um, so anyways, like this story out of Washington makes me think there's something more nefarious going on. The
Hmm.
reason I agree, I always kind of trip out, like, what the hell? Why aren't there more cemeteries?
Yeah.
We should be inundated with cemeteries.
I mean, seriously, there should be one on every corner. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
like
Because,
let's just take our town.
yeah.
Let's just take our town.
And in our lifetime, there's been a lot of
How many
people.
cemeteries are here?
I
I,
think one.
it's like that one,
There's
right?
just one. Yeah.
And it
And
hasn't grown exponentially. The
no.
the population has.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of dead people all these years. Where are they going?
Now,
Where are they going?
this is the interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've had three people close to me die in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
My grandma, my grandpa, and my dad. They all died. And they all got cremated.
Mm.
my grandpa and my dad were military, so they had a military burial at sea where they intern your ashes into the ocean
Hmm.
off of a Navy ship, which is cool.
Right.
And then my grandma, her urn is at my house.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that could be taking place a lot. Maybe,
That's what I was saying. That could be taking place a lot,
but still,
but still, the math doesn't math.
it
Like,
no.
I see,
I love that. The math doesn't math. No, you're right.
when I
When something's not right, it's not right.
it's like with everything else, we notice things that don't really make sense, and we start asking questions. When things don't add
Well,
up.
that's our show. And
With
that's why I was just talking with you
Yeah,
before we push record. We see the thing is that scales have fallen away from our eyes.
yeah,
And so we don't have cognitus.
no.
We're not walking around with cognitus. So we're
We
like
ask what
asking
we are
questions.
we are not we don't allow ourselves to be gaslit. So when we see something with our eyes and we're told something else, we start asking questions. So this just seems suspicious to me. And I don't have the answers. I don't really know exactly what's happening, but it doesn't add up. The math
Well,
doesn't add up.
okay, so there's one cemetery in our town. It hasn't grown, the population's grown like tenfold.
And I still see funerals happening, like when I walk by churches and stuff. I still see normal, like old fashioned funerals with caskets happening. So people are still doing that. It's not like everybody's getting cremated now and there's no more caskets. You
That's
know what
right.
I mean?
That's right. So what is going on? Is there something nefarious going on? What was Soylent Green about?
They were basically doing what they're doing in Washington, right?
Yeah.
They were putting the dead
No, no,
bodies
no. It's even worse than
into
that.
the ground, weren't they?
No, it's
No?
even worse than that.
I don't know if I ever did.
Charlton Heston is in it, and you got to go revisit it.
Okay.
It's kind of a cheesy 70s movie,
Yeah.
but if you look at it as like the cult divulging, it's an interesting study. What they do is they have Soylent Green is a type of food that's given out on Tuesdays.
Oh, right.
And it comes out in the wash.
Yeah.
That's what Charlton Heston's most famous line of his whole career is Soylent Green is
It's
people.
people.
That's it. So um I think the cult kind of gets off on having us eat each other.
Yeah.
Because what didn't we have dead baby in some of the
Yeah.
chips?
Well, we were talking about that. So they're putting like, I guess aborted fetus cell lines into a lot of food. And so when you see in the ingredients natural flavor, what is a natural flavor? Like what
It's natural.
wouldn't they just say like lemon or, cheese
No.
or whatever the flavor is? Why do they say natural?
Natural.
That's like the word for it.
Well, because it's kind of like remember when there's a shooter and the FBI says, we've been in contact with that person.
Right.
You have to translate them. They kind of speak a different language.
Yeah.
They speak fluent lie.
They speak yeah.
So they speak
They speak CIA.
they speak fluent CIA, which is fluent lie.
Yeah.
So you have to unpack what they're saying. So
Natural flavoring.
when they say natural flavoring, they mean dead baby.
Yeah.
That's what they mean.
Because that's kind of like code word.
It's code word.
And you look at it, and you go, oh, natural.
And
It's natural. I mean, well, we did talk about also like the organic product. A lot of the organic products have locust bean paste in it. So
locust bean
they
paste.
consider those to be organic.
It's organic.
The
Those are
locusts,
organisms.
they're,
So it's organic.
yeah. Yeah.
Even though you're not really supposed to, there's something in the exoskeleton of insects.
It's really bad for you.
It's called, I can't remember the name of it. It's totally bad for you.
Yeah.
And they
They
want
want
that.
us eating it.
You want that in
And
you.
they want us eating like people.
Well, dead baby is definitely in several ingredients. And I think what it is it's called the genome. So a genome is like a cell line from a dead baby. And they have
They put those in pokey pokes too.
well, yeah, so check it out. Let's just take Schmishmortion. Just Schmishmortion alone.
Hmm.
Okay. So we do, according to a recent interview I saw, we do between 500 and 600,000 abortions a year in this country.
Wow.
That's gnarly.
Yeah.
Where are all the cemeteries with those babies? Are those babies getting buried in cemeteries
Oh no, I think they just like put that into like hospital waste or something,
or Doritos?
or Doritos.
And I'm thinking, why would they put that in Doritos? Um, if you become a cannibal, what if there's some kind of a spiritual ramification?
Hmm.
I don't think we're supposed to eat other humans.
No,
They used to get um,
we could get,
encephalitis,
yeah, we could get like mad cow disease.
mad cow disease,
Yeah.
and that was weird. So, like, if you started, like, let's say you're in a plane crash and there's no food, and you're not rescued for a long time, like that movie Alive. Remember Alive?
Hmm.
The soccer players, and they like, well, we ate each other. So,
Oh my God.
so my understanding is if you eat human flesh, you start to have a degenerative brain disease, like kind of like mad cow disease. I think called encephalopathy or something like that.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's spiritual ramifications to feeding us humans, and that's why there's no cemeteries. Because if you buy processed foods, you might be consuming dead people.
Yeah, you are. So here's my only, you know,
And who knows, maybe it's sprayed on the crops.
oh, I wouldn't be surprised about
That's what
that.
they said they're
I
doing.
mean, they want us to have this stuff. But here's my kind of like question that I have for this whole theory though is um because I question everything, so I'm not just gonna like go along with
Yeah.
like whatever. But um I do wonder like
Guess I'm a bad influence on you because I look at stuff like this and create like conspiracy theories out of
yeah.
it.
Well, I've already had one kind of in my mind. I just don't quite know where it's going or where it came from. But uh the we know there doesn't seem to be enough cemeteries. We I mean this is obvious, right?
My
This is
gut
this
tells
is
me.
yeah,
My gut tells me that's pretty much what's going on.
but I don't understand like if you go to a cemetery, like if you had a loved one and you wanted to go visit, if you
Like my grandma and grandpa, who I drove by their cemetery the other day.
yeah, like if you wanted to go visit, um I would think that their tombstone would be there, right? Because if their
Yeah.
tombstone like had somebody else's name on it, there would probably be complaints. Like somebody would you'd be asking some questions like, how come grandma's tombstone says
Yeah.
like a different name?
I went to
You
put
know,
flowers on my grandma's
and
tombstone
it
and
said
it
it
said
said
somebody
Joe
else.
Smith.
Yeah.
And it wasn't my grandma's name. So there's where I have the
Oh, I know why you're
question.
saying because you've heard people assert that, well,
They're
somebody got buried on top of your grandma
yeah.
because there's no room.
Well, so or like if they're not actually burying people, like maybe they're taking the bodies and like doing something else with them or whatever to like maybe they just want to save room in the graveyards, but they could be doing that. But then like if you went back like, a few weeks later or like 2 years later to go visit and the person's tombstone wasn't there,
Ooh, so
it would
you're saying that the actual funeral is a big script
hoax.
and a
Hoax.
hoax, and the coffin's empty. They bury it, they act like it's your loved one, and then after you leave, then they go, "Okay, go dig it up, and we'll take that back now."
Yeah, now we can go bury somebody else there and charge
And
them another
using the same
$50,000.
plot over and
Yeah.
over again.
I mean, that would make sense, right? But where I have like a question about that is like then if you go back to visit, it wouldn't have like you don't have to make an appointment to go visit a graveyard. If you did, that would really answer a lot of questions because then they could be like, "Oh, Mary Smith is coming in today to visit her grandma. Get the Joe Smith tombstone in the
Well,
right
do you
spot." You know
have
what I
to?
mean?
Like, do you have to check in at the front gate?
I don't think
Not
so.
really,
I
huh?
think you can just go anytime. So that's where I wonder. But then I've heard another theory is that they wait like 50 to 100 years or something. When I guess they would assume that all the family members are gone, and then they replace the tombstone with a new one. I don't know, but I just keep going back to the main question, and the main point is that the amount of dead people don't add up to how many tombstones and how many graveyards there are.
It's kind of like, why are there seven mattress stores in my town?
Yeah, we did an episode on
Uh,
that because that doesn't add up
It doesn't
either.
add up. And like, how many people are buying those
People
mattresses?
people aren't buying
And
mattresses
I
all the
never
time.
see anybody in there. And
Yeah.
you guys are kind of a gyp. I can go online and buy one for a fraction of the cost. So there is stuff going on. There's stuff going on. And we have already uncovered conspiracies. So I'm thinking this might be something. I think what they're doing is uh, they're using our bodies, our dead bodies,
Mm-hmm.
for something.
Right.
And it's not, you're not getting buried in the green grass and your family comes and visits your bones.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're getting told what's going on, but they're using our bodies for something. What I'm thinking is cloning.
Oh.
They need DNA. And so I think they're taking DNA
Mm-hmm.
and they're using it for cloning. And then they're just disposing of our bodies.
So where do you think the like tombstones are going? I mean, shouldn't just the number of cemeteries is off. You know what I mean? Like this is one of those rabbit holes that we don't
You
have
know
the
what they'll probably tell
answers.
you? You know what they
Yeah.
probably tell you? See, like I said, so the three people that died in my family in the last 10 years, and these are the only deaths I've encountered, except for my grandparents when I was a teenager, I had no idea what they did.
And they were buried.
They were buried. They
Hmm.
were buried. At least I was told.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Right.
Who knows? But no. So so I don't know. This is what I was thinking though. Let's say let's say I croak, right?
Hmm.
Which I'll
It
probably
would be so sad.
you'd be sad, but let's say I croak. Now my daughter has to go take care of like getting me taken care of, whatever.
Hmm.
And she goes, no, my dad said he does not want to be cremated. He wants to be buried.
Hmm.
It's important to him. He wants to have a grave. And the local cemetery goes, we don't have any room.
Yeah.
You have to cremate your dad.
Oh. Okay. Interesting point because I've heard about people how they reserve like a family plot
Hmm.
like years in advance. Like they'll reserve like a whole plot for like all six of them or something. So they can
Yeah.
all be right there
We're
together.
all here.
Yeah. So it would make sense that that cemetery would run out of room at some point,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, there got plots. It'd be like if it was a parking lot and you get to say,
You,
these six spots are ours.
yeah. And like you can only fit so many cars in. If the parking lot is a certain size, you can't just like keep stacking cars in. Like eventually it's going to
Yeah,
fill
you
up.
know what it is? It's like a parking lot that keeps taking cars for decades.
Yeah.
And it's
That
like, how's that work?
I know. Like there's parked on top of each other or something.
So I think what happens is when somebody, because so my dad just died a couple months ago, and so when he died, um, they left the body there. He died at like 1 in the morning, and the body just stayed where he died in his bedroom for like 5 hours, and
Wow.
my mom had to get a hold of the coroner,
Oh my
and
gosh.
then she had to get a hold of the funeral home,
Wow.
and the funeral home was the one that took forever. So I'm wondering if the funeral home gets notified and says, "We got a dead body," and then they have their protocols.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they have a whole list.
They got a protocol, and that protocol manages the dead bodies.
Yeah.
And what I think might be happening is the protocol is they either just completely dispose of your body or they decide, well, we might want to harvest DNA from that body, so send it to our labs.
Hmm.
And then they go, well, they said the family said they want to have a burial. And then so they just go, okay, well, we'll put, um, like if a family insists on having a wake, they'll keep the body for the wake, and then they have protocols for that.
Hmm.
But then if the family says they want to have a burial and they have a plot, they'll just bury an empty coffin
Hmm.
for a few days. The family thinks that, you know, dad is buried now. Let's move on. But really, the body's being done whatever they're doing with it.
Exactly. But
And the cemetery hasn't grown.
but that would still take up a cemetery plot.
Well, the cemetery hasn't grown. So they
Right.
use the same plot
Right.
over and over again for the same
So
funeral.
you think they like maybe use that plot and they say, okay, this is where your family member is, and then like after like 50 years, they just take that tombstone out and
Could be.
put a new tombstone
Could be.
in its place. So it's got like a maybe a 50 to 75-year revolving, you know.
Yeah, because have you noticed, like, if you want to see graves from 1781, you have to go to like Carson City. Or
Yeah.
you go to what's that little town out by Carson City in Nevada? It's called
You have to go to like an old little town.
Virginia City.
Yeah. Or like I said, went to Charleston or Savannah, like
Yeah,
all those old towns,
Virginia City's like that.
they
They
have those.
preserved it, and it's kind of the whole town's like a museum,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like a testimony to the old days.
Right.
There, you might see some people buried in the 1700s, but it's you don't see them everywhere.
No.
People were living in our town back in the 1800s.
Right.
How come there's not everybody that lived in that time buried here
Exactly. Well, and also
all the way through the 1900s?
like all those towns that have those old cemeteries from the 1700s, there should also be cemeteries that are full of people from like, the 1800s, the 1900s. There should be like thousands of people from all these different decades,
Yeah,
different centuries.
yeah. What the hell? So, this is what I'm
That's
it's
so
so
weird.
gross
It's
and
a
weird.
weird, it's a weird,
It's a weird investigation
it's a
because
weird
you're
rabbit
talking
hole.
about something like most people don't really stop and think like, what do we do with our dead bodies in our society? You know what I think it kind of calls attention to too is how little value we place on human life.
Right.
We don't honor people. When someone dies, we're like, we can feed them, whatever.
Yeah.
They,
Yeah.
we don't have this like
We don't have
reverence.
pyramids.
Yeah, we don't have mausoleums, we don't have shrines.
Yeah.
You get basically squirted on the crops.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of maybe that's why they divulge that story is I think what they want people really understanding is that your life is worthless. You're just an ant on a pile of poop.
Mm.
That's what your life is. You know, we've been around for 20 billion years. We found a dire wolf bone.
Yeah.
We found two dire wolf bones.
And we
And
recreated an animal.
one was from 6 million years ago, and the other one was from much deeper in time,
Mhm.
11 million
And
years
we
ago.
were able to make a new animal from that.
We made a whole new animal from that. We cloned it, and we know exactly how old those bones are. And there is no God, and your life is just you're kind of just a consumer. Like what I think the cult wants us to kind of fully internalize is you are the bird on the island with the blue tag. You're invasive. You have to understand this.
Yeah.
You're an invasive species. So your death is like good for the earth.
Right.
So we're not going to have a big celebration over
Not
your death.
having you and a lot more of you is a good thing.
It's a good thing. We're
Yeah.
just exterminating you. You're kind of like cockroaches we spray radon.
Mm-hmm.
We're not gonna have a funeral for all the cockroaches we spray radon.
Right.
You just get thrown in the trash.
Mm-hmm.
That's I think kind of how it is.
I think you're right.
I think we're just trash when we die. And because, yeah, why don't you see all the graves? You know?
It's a mystery.
It is.
It's a weird mystery. I think I would love it if, anybody that's listening has some theories or ideas
Mhm.
about this, if they would comment
That's
because
probably somebody that's like, oh my God, you
oh
guys are
my
so
God, these people have
dumb.
no idea where the dead bodies
This is
are
how it
going.
works.
But there might be a few people out there going, "Oh my gosh, I never even thought of
I
that."
never
And
thought of that.
I have an idea about it. I'd love to hear the
Well,
idea.
I'm a conspiracy theorist. I really believe there's something nefarious going on with our dead
I
bodies.
do
I
too.
think that could be cloning,
Yeah.
taking DNA for cloning, and they could be like the Matrix, like liquefying.
Yeah. I think all that's happening definitely, but I just want to know where the the
What are the
tombstones are going.
tombstones?
If you go visit grandma and it's got
It's
Joe
some,
Smith's name on it,
you
that's
know
not
what that
that's
suggests? There's some micromanagement going on there.
something like
You know
that.
what? They have a triple M to the P
Yeah,
that manages that.
totally.
So,
They probably start shuffling around the
because I noticed
tombstone.
when my dad died, they started micromanaging my mom about the body.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, oh, so, ma'am, okay, I know you're grieving right now, but first we got to jump through this hoop, and then this hoop, and then
Yeah.
this hoop, and that was what she had to deal with right when he died.
Wow.
So they micromanage, and anytime I see micromanagement, I see the cult's fingerprints.
The cult's fingerprints are all over it.
So that's where I think
The
it.
micromanaging comes
The
from the top.
example, yeah. So right from the get go, like if you die in a nursing home, if you die in your house, if you die in the hospital, there's a protocol,
Hmm.
and the funeral home is the linchpin.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing takes place until the funeral home gets notified, even if it's the middle of the night. The funeral home has to get notified, and then they come with the protocols and they come and tell you, here's what we do with the body.
Interesting.
So I think that we should be talking to funeral home directors. But you know what's weird about that is there were morticians and funeral home directors that were divulging the cooties.
I know.
Remember
And
that?
they're still talking about that. I just saw a new Reese report. They were all at some convention recently, and they were still talking about like how they're seeing all these weird, strange clots in all these dead bodies that
Dude,
got the pokey pokes.
did you see? They would pull out these big rubbery, spider
Rubbery,
webby
like
things.
octopus. They said it was like calamari.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's like in your veins, blocking you, so you have a stroke.
right.
And that's what the pokey pokes caused. But we
And
saved
the,
lots of lives.
and the funeral home people were saying that they were seeing this a lot now, and they had never seen it before.
Never.
Never before the
I've
pokey
never,
pokes.
I mean, who's ever seen that? Big rubbery things coming out of your veins?
Mhm.
Well, because like I noticed the guy he does embalming,
Yeah,
right?
that's those are the ones that were. It was like some embalmers convention or something, and they were all
Yeah.
talking.
So that means
Gnarly
okay,
job.
so he's the embalmer. One of the things he would do is he would run liquid through the veins
Yeah,
and it would clean them out.
yeah.
And then it would get blocked and it would start forming like a bubble in the skin. He's like, what's going on? And they would look and they'd pull out this big blocker, this rubber
This
blocker,
piece of calamari,
calamari,
like 2 feet long.
like 2 feet long and thick.
Yeah,
And that was in that person's veins
yeah,
and it wasn't supposed to be there.
right.
But you know what I'm starting to think is, okay, so those are the embalmers. So they're just kind of like the yes men.
Hmm.
It's the funeral home director who's in the cult.
Right.
It's kind of like the administrator of the hospital is the one who says, put them on a vent, give them remdesivir, put them on a vent, and then call it a COVID death. That's the administrator of the hospital that does that. The funeral home director goes, here's what's going on with the body. And so there are people who are good-hearted people who are just doing the embalming because they think that's what they have to do. And they don't understand
What
what's
happened?
going on.
They don't know what happens after that.
They don't know. They
Yeah,
do their job. And then they actually the one guy got kind of like fired because
right.
remember he came out and did that
Yeah,
video about
he
the
was
things.
talking about it.
He got like totally persecuted. They came after his family. They were
Yeah.
trying to kill him because that's where the rubber meets the road with the pokies.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, wait a second. That person died from there was like a 49-year-old person who was in good health, died from some rubbery clot in their veins. That and then oh, by the way, they took the pokey. So
Mm-hmm.
they don't want that kind of stuff going
No,
out there.
no.
But I think those guys aren't managing, they're not the triple M to the P. So they have to have a triple M to the P.
Micro micro managing megalomaniac psychopath.
That's right. That's right. It's a mouthful. It's
and
a
and
mouthful.
it's getting bigger.
It is, it's getting bigger.
It's
It's a mouthful.
growing.
It's so the funeral director is a micromanaging
Media.
megalomaniac psychopath who got turned into that by Larry Fink.
Hmm.
So that's I think who manages dead bodies
Hmm.
because they're managing dead bodies.
Right.
Now I'm sure you're like, duh, they got to manage dead bodies. But no, it's like cult management. They're doing something nefarious with the dead
And
bodies.
they're
That's what we're suggesting.
shuffling the tombstones somehow. Just the
Yeah,
the
they got it.
the fact that about that cemetery that you were talking about in our town that they like turned into a park, that whole thing is super weird too. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like they shuffled those around.
they
Where
moved
where did they
bodies.
go? So did
Yeah,
if they moved those to the one cemetery in town that we know of,
yeah.
then shouldn't that cemetery be even more crowded because they took all of the dead bodies and tombstones out of the one and they added them to the other one?
Nothing to see here.
No, so that one should be like more crowded
And did
because
they have to get like family permission to like, I'm gonna like go and take your remains of your loved one. Epiphany,
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 epiphany.
epiphany. Oh
Ding,
my
ding, ding,
gosh.
ding, 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 ding.
So maybe this is what happens. So that park is like pretty old. And I think maybe when they moved all of those dead bodies, supposedly maybe to the other cemetery, they were so old that nobody was really around anymore to notice like that they were moved or where they went.
Yeah.
So maybe this is what happens in every cemetery.
That
Supposedly, we have to move these because this is gonna
So
be
they
a
wait till the
part.
bereaved knock off.
Yeah,
And then they go and just go, well, no one's going to remember that this was Jack Johnson.
yeah,
He died in 1941.
yeah,
Everybody's dead that would possibly have known him.
yeah.
So now we can just go ahead.
Yeah, they go, maybe they go, we're turning this whole thing into a park. So we got to move all of these. We're going to move it to the other cemetery. And that's what they tell the public. But meanwhile, all they're doing is just clearing the way for like the new ones
That's what they're doing. They're and I can understand like in a very legitimate need to
logistically. Like you're
logistically
going to run out of room
we got to
someday.
deal with dead people and we
And
got to
someday we're going to run out of room.
but I think what they've probably done is they said, yeah, no, we don't care about efficiency. We have a plan for your dead body. I think that's kind of what's going on. I think our dead body is going to be used by the cult.
I wouldn't be surprised.
That's not a good feeling. It's like I've been resisting
It's
you the whole time.
people.
Like I want to somehow keep my dead body from the cult.
I know.
Maybe I want to like, you
What
know,
if they like since we've like resisted all of this, what if like then after we're dead then they like start experimenting on us
and
and
they go,
like
you guys get special treatment now
yeah,
that you're dead.
you're so pure. We're
Yeah,
gonna inject
because
you with
you
stuff.
were rejecting us the whole time.
Yeah, we're gonna inject you with stuff and see what happens.
We're gonna try to reanimate you, but you're gonna come back as a cult member.
Yeah, you're gonna come back as a walker.
You're gonna be a walker now because you wouldn't be one when you were alive. So this is a very interesting
it,
rabbit hole. You
it's
know, it
interesting.
just kind of shows like I think the cult has taken over every aspect of our life. And death.
Well, it also
They've taken
and
over
the
our life
afterlife.
and death.
It shows another thing too, which is they've got a lot of secrets from us. I think they keep
Totally.
a lot of secrets, a
Totally.
lot of lies, and there's a lot of stuff that they don't tell us. They seem to know stuff that they don't
But you know
want
what's
us to know.
interesting about that is now that we have the discernment that we have, and every day I think we get a little bit more discernment,
Hmm.
we're able to kind of read between the lines of their lies and kind of start to discern truths, you know? And that's a skill that we've kind of developed. And I think that's how you have to do it. You have to understand that you're being lied to, whether it's in school, whether it's on TV, whether it's Netflix
Oh
or a
my,
movie or a music or a news, you're being lied to. So what you have to have is a skill set.
hmm.
And that skill set is discernment. And you have to be able to take their lies, not swallow it, but say, okay, they're telling me that they're spraying dead people on the crops in Washington. That is probably happening
Some other
large
places
scale.
too.
It's probably happening like industrial scale.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like think about the third world. You think they're having like elaborate so because the cult cares about this earth. They love the earth. And they're like, this is
Supposedly.
ours.
Hmm.
Well, they do. That's why they're micromanaging Antarctica, because they want it all for themselves.
Well, that's funny you just brought that up because I was just having like a little mini epiphany when you were talking, and I was thinking, you know how we did that episode, Could Antarctica be the gateway to freedom?
Yes, yes.
Maybe Antarctica holds some of the answers to this question as well.
A bunch of the dead bodies. You go to Antarctica, it's a huge
There's a huge
cemetery.
cemetery.
It's like the size of Kansas.
Hmm.
Could be.
I don't know.
I think Diddy's gonna go there now.
Oh,
You
I don't
notice
want him. I don't want him there. I still
well,
want to go to Antarctica.
I know, and you might be. But see, the thing is like, yeah, have you noticed like the verdict is in
Yeah.
and he's
Even my
celebrating.
mom knew about it.
And he's celebrating. He's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, it's good."
Oh,
So, yeah. So after all that, he just gets a slap on the wrist.
is that what happened?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I even the charges against him were like kind of like that's not really it. His charges should be you lined yourself up with Satan and
Right.
you worked for Satan for a
Yeah.
long time.
There's never any consequences for these people.
No. And so that's why I kind of bring that up. It's kind of like you know, the cult just basically lies to us. And we're supposed to just be like, oh yeah, this guy's gonna finally get he's gonna finally get what's coming to him.
It never happens.
But it never happens. And then I think what happens is um my theory is Diddy sold his soul to play a role. His
Yeah.
role is done.
Yeah.
And now he's getting voted off the island.
And he might end up in Antarctica
And I know you hate to think that,
on
but
his submarine.
there could be.
Mm-hmm.
He could be subbing over in Antarctica now.
Mm-hmm.
The trial's over. He doesn't have to make any more appearances.
Right.
So now it's like,
He's been
okay,
written off the show.
he's written off the show. And you know what's funny is he'll do a Martha Stewart comeback. Like he'll just they'll
He'll
like
start crocheting scarves in
he'll be
in the
crocheting
prison.
scarves. Yeah, he'll make a comeback and just, hey, I'm still here, but it's not what you think.
Yeah.
So the cult has these elaborate lies that they're telling us, but you and I are kind of starting to kind of see through the lies
Mm-hmm.
because I think you and I are kind of starting to realize we've been lied to all our lives,
Right.
and that's a gnarly thing to come to.
It's gnarly. And I think that is what keeps a lot of people in the cage.
Yeah,
We're like
scary.
in a big cage because to realize that we've been lied to about the just every aspect of our lives for like our entire lives and before that is too overwhelming like to wrap your head around. People can't fathom it, so they just take their blue pill and shut down. But we I think it's liberating to realize in a way because we don't have the answers, but we at least know that we've been lied to.
Yeah,
You
that's
know what
such
I
a good
mean?
point. That's such a good point. Here's an analogy I think when you're talking, I was just thinking analogy. So you heard somebody downstairs broke into your house. You have two choices. You can hide in your closet and hope they don't find you,
Mm-hmm.
or you can go down there and confront them and deal with the situation.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people know somebody's broken into the house, but they're just like
Hiding under the bed.
they're hiding out, or even worse, they're just watching TV in their house and just going, whatever. I think that's kind of what's
They're
going
on
on.
their phone. they're, they're texting their friend.
There's like, yeah, yeah, there's someone in the house, but I don't want to go check it out. But what's going on in sports? I think that's kind of what's going on because you have to know that you've been lied to your whole life at this
Mm-hmm.
point. If you have any intellect at all,
Yeah.
you have to be coming to that conclusion. But I think people just go, um, it's kind of like the guy you go, hey, wait, don't go get the shot for your son. Like, I got new information. They just go, oh wow, that's interesting. Okay, we're have a nice day. I think that's how it is for most people. You and I aren't going to do that.
Yeah.
If someone breaks into the house, I'm going to go downstairs and be like, what the hell are you doing? And then I'm either going to die or kick the dude out. One of the two things is going to happen. But I want to know. I'm not just going to sit there and hide my head from this. So I think that's kind of what this episode kind of brings up. There's
It's
something going
another
on.
yeah, it's we don't know what, but
There's
it's
something going
another
on.
lie. There's another lie.
There's a lie.
Something doesn't add up.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll have to bury this one for now.
Let's bury this one. Are we going to get a tombstone
We'll have
for
to
it?
put it to rest.
Is there room for a tombstone? But I think, we may revisit this one. We may visit the
The
grave.
grave. We're gonna visit the grave.
It,
We'll come put flowers on this episode
yeah,
again.
in a future episode
It's
because
kind of Halloweeny.
yeah, maybe at Halloween time we'll have more answers and we'll revisit this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of morbid.
It is a little morbid, but it's kind of I don't know, it's kind of interesting too.
Well, it's interesting because they're doing something.
I know.
I don't just trust my lying eyes.
No.
There's more dead people than are being represented
There
in
should
cemeteries.
there should be more cemeteries all over the place. All right, well that was fun. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.